To me, personal branding is not an act of creation, it's an act of remembering. So in this way, I'm a rememberer, and I help you to remember who you are.
Welcome back to Design Speaks Podcast. I'm your host, Brandi C., your quirky creative director, here to help you on your journey towards becoming a better designer by keeping you inspired and sharing with you uncommon strategies. I'm here with an extra special guest.
Okay, I'm ready.
To talk about personal branding. I am so excited. I've been trying so hard for a long time to get this conversation booked with Chris Do. Today we're going to be chatting about primarily personal branding, which is something that he is particularly interested in talking about today. Chris is a really well-known figure in the design and creative industry. If you don't already know him, I will allow him just a short time to do his probably really well-rehearsed pitch on what it is that you do.
Is that the cue for me to say it now?
That's you. You can go now. I'll let you speak.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Do. I'm a loud introvert, a serial entrepreneur, recovering graphic designer, and an educator. And I had this really big mission to teach 1 billion people how to make a living doing what they love. And currently, that is through personal branding.
Wow. I feel like I should have set a timer. That's like a record. I don't even think that was like a 30-second pitch. That was pretty great.
Thanks.
So, okay. I have a good long list of questions that I have prepared, but we will just kind of let the conversation go where it will. So first of all, I would like to know a little bit about your journey into this whole personal branding world. I know that you are a part of the Futur. You have founded the Futur. You also used to have a different channel on YouTube that you kind of started with, but how did that morph and meld into kind of where you are now?
Okay, I just want to be clear for the record. For 20 plus years, I worked in the service design space. I created commercials and music videos for some of the biggest brands and bands in the world. And in 2014, a friend of mine invited me to go and create an education company with him. His name is Jose Caballero. And we started to experiment with creating products and content, and YouTube was one of those strategies. So here I am, 42 years old, starting in YouTube and thinking, I think I'm too old for this, and I don't know if this is the right place for me to be right now. I had this misconception that YouTube was for self-taught amateurs who didn't know anything. And that seems to be like what it was littered with, because it's like you couldn't find a job, you didn't go to school, and so what are you gonna do? You're gonna become an influencer, and you're gonna create content. Lo and behold, 7-8 years later, here I am. I don't do any more client work. I just create content on multiple platforms trying to teach folks. And so that's the evolution that I've gone on.
So where has your personal branding come through that? Because I know everybody knows Chris Do. Yes, they probably know the Futur. They probably know some of the past work you've done with companies and things like that also. Mm-hmm. But I can almost say your name to just about any professional creative graphic designer, illustrator, and they know who you are. So how have you morphed into more of letting that be part of what you do and your name really being well known?
I didn't go into creating content with the intention to become famous or to be well known. I just wanted to teach people, and that's really my passion, to teach people. And what people don't realize is I spent 15 years prior to recording videos on YouTube, teaching at private art schools like Art Center, Otis, guest lecturing at CalArts and other schools. And I love that part. The part I didn't love about it was there's a couple of components. Number one, the pay was terrible. And I just put that out there. Pay's terrible. It's very hard to get rich as a teacher if you teach in institutions. And number two is like the impact that I wanted to make wasn't really there. It's a double-edged sword, because private art schools, they pride themselves on a low student to teacher ratio. So sometimes my classes literally had 5 people in them, and this was beautiful because we would spend like almost an hour per person for a critique. We did this for 14 weeks in a row. And I love that aspect of it, and I think that was so special. But as one is to do, I started to daydream a little bit while I was teaching, thinking about how cool would it be if we were in a classroom with 8 or 9 students, but it was like Big Brother, where they didn't realize it, but there were cameras everywhere documenting everything and microphones hidden, where we could take that experience, a very bespoke thing, and then transmit that to the world. So people who are in impoverished communities, or people who are busy, who are unable for a number of different reasons, financial, geographical reasons why they couldn't attend, why can't they have access to this? It doesn't cost more money to do this. It just takes some effort. And that's what brought me along this whole journey and exploring it. And after a couple of failed attempts at trying to convince institutions and organizations to get involved, I just had to do it myself. And later on, I've adopted this rule. It's not my rule, but you're allowed to complain about something one time. The second time you complain about it, you're a whiner. It's like, do something about it, right?
Do something about it.
Do something about it. That's it. And your complaints can become your calling. So here I am saying, oh, it should be better. Why don't you guys do this? And I'm like every other person I despise now, which is like trying to drive the bus from the back. That's what everybody does. So now it's like, I got to put my money where my mouth is. I got to make some commitment, some sacrifice. And I started to do this thing. And eventually, it takes a while. It took a couple years for me to find my groove and then make content that seemed to work with people. And I love this one aspect of social media is the numbers don't lie. When you create something, an audience shows up, compared to like the previous thing that you made. And so you get data, and I love that. And it's not always clear to me, like when I'm in a class, is this working for people? Because there's no metric
what are they
there.
absorbing?
Yeah, or are they even paying attention? Or they're just glazed eyes, just pretending to pay attention? You just don't know. And so I love that aspect of it. So lo and behold, many, many videos later, I remember one time, a good friend of mine introduced me to an event, a small event, maybe 30, 40 people. It's like, please help me welcome design celebrity Chris. I'm like, who'd you bring? I thought I was speaking next.
What Chris?
Yeah, where's the celebrity? And it was not something that I was comfortable with. So the whole personal branding, the getting known, and some of the fame that comes with this was just an all byproduct of me trying to be the best teacher that I can be.
I see that. And honestly, the reason I'm sitting here with you is I feel the same. The reason I have a podcast, a blog, the content that I make is also because I was finding myself like bitter and complaining about certain things in the industry and was like, well, how come nobody understands what I do? Okay, well, maybe I should explain to them what I do. I feel that humility, and I admire it for sure that wasn't like a goal that you set out to do. So why is personal branding so special to you, and why is that something that you're passionate about speaking on? And how do you show people how to separate that from this like cult of personality, people trying to just be this brand is me, so it's about me and it's all about me, and people only care about me, and I'm going to show them me getting ready, and I'm going to show them, there's that where people want to see like the behind the scenes on your real life, but then where's the line, and how do you teach people the importance of this without it becoming just all about them?
Right. The me show, the Brady Bunch Marsha or Jan Brady syndrome, Marsha. It's all about you, isn't it?
You.
Right? Okay. I'm dating myself here, right?
And you know what? It's okay. I turned 42 this year, so.
Your question is multi-layered, multifaceted, so it's going to take some time to unpack, and I'll do it.
Absolutely.
And then you interrupt as we need to, okay?
Okay. I'll do my best. I will try not to just sit here and listen.
Okay. So the first part I want to talk about is branding. And then I'll get into personal branding and the times that we live in terms of the attention economy and the narcissism that can be part of this trapping and intentionality, okay? And so we'll start with Marty Neumeier. He's written several books about this. A brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or organization. So it's a feeling, and feelings can't be controlled. They can be influenced. Jeff Bezos said your brand is your reputation or what people say about you when you leave the room. Okay,
not
we
in
understand
the room.
that, right? So it's a gut feeling, and it's not what you say it is, it's what people say it is. Okay, so now what can we do? So the act of branding is impression management. Like, what impression am I making on people? And here's something I heard, again, just reminded myself just recently. I've heard it before from Seth Godin, and he says that a brand is preference. If people don't have a preference for what it is that you do, whether it's a product, service, then you have no brand. And if you can't predict what this brand will do, you have no brand again. And it's quite easy to measure in very quantifiable ways how valuable your brand is. And if you're a designer, creative person, you need to listen to this part. So the amount that somebody's willing to pay for what you do that's above a cheaper alternative is the value of your brand. So if you're going to provide a service for your clients, like say they make cookies, right? Homemade cookies, they're brilliant at doing it. And they price it at $2, but everyone else prices it at $2. And you go through this whole effort of rebranding, changing the logo, changing the packaging, the messaging, and it's still sold for $2. You've not increased their brand at all. So then the effectiveness of your branding is really more an exercise in design and decoration. And so if we want to be effective and to be taken seriously within the business world, we have to look at how do we increase the perceived value of something when nothing else is really different except for what it is that you do. Now, that's a scary thought.
I love that. Brand is perceived value also.
Yes, it really is. And if you think about it, let's test the theory here. And it would be something like a bottle of water. So if you buy a Crystal Springs or something Crystal Geyser, or I don't forget what it's called.
Fiji
Well,
water.
we'll start with the low end first, Crystal Geyser, which you could probably get for like 39 cents a bottle. Now, is there a story? Is there an emotional attachment to it? I don't think so. Water's a commodity. We just want something that's cheap and it's not going to kill us. But then as you start to move away from the Crystal Geysers of the world and you start moving up, you're like, wait a minute. What about Fiji? What about Voss? What about Essentia?
I love Voss.
Same, right? For different reasons, right? And then maybe there's smart water. And it's like, wait a minute. Water could be smart? So am I stupid if I buy
I never
other
knew
kinds
it
of
was
water?
dumb.
Right? I don't want to be dumb.
Yes.
And brilliant name, by the way. So you're looking at that and you're like, okay,
Absolutely.
why are you now paying $4, $7 for a bottle that you can pay for 39 cents? And the more you're willing to pay, the more valuable that brand is. And the darling of the water world right now is Liquid Death. Just brilliant design.
Yes. Oh my
brilliant
gosh.
packaging, marketed to the right kinds of people, outrageous campaigns, and their story is super interesting. So now we can say, like, if you line up all the brands of water, whoever commands the greatest amount above the cheapest alternative, that's the most valuable brand. So it could be Avion. It could be, like, Fiji's are very expensive, right? They've got a good story. And you buy into that story. Once again, let's talk about
And I just feel like it tastes better. But it probably doesn't. It's just in my head. It's in the branding. It's in my head.
Have you done a
Yes.
blind taste test yet?
No.
You should. And you may surprise yourself.
Okay.
I have.
Oh.
Okay. So, of course,
Okay.
and we filmed this too. We've never released it.
I
but
didn't see this.
Yes, we haven't
Okay,
released it.
that's
That's why. I went out to the supermarket and spent all kinds of money on bottled water. And then I came back to the office. I labeled each cup and I had all our people line up and go A, B, C, D, E. Right? Or however many bottles of water. They would taste it, and they would write their favorite, and then they would write like what they guessed it to be. Now, without the packaging, the label next to the cups of water, it's very hard to distinguish. Very few people got any answers correct. It was just might as well throw it at the wind. And here's the shocker. It wasn't by a wide margin, but the water that they thought tastes the best was the cheapest.
No.
There's your shocker right there. It was like Crystal Geyser or Arrowhead.
I don't know what to learn from that.
I'm about to tell you right now.
Buy the cheapest water?
Well, no, maybe. Or maybe there's this other idea that you and I are not as logical as we think we are. That actually we're very emotional creatures. And
how dare you imply
right?
such a thing?
Yeah, I know. We're emotional creatures. We make decisions on not a lot of data. And then we post-rationalize it after the fact. Seth Godin writes about this in his book, All
Yes.
Marketers Are Liars. And here's the cool part. You and I were complicit in the lie. The lie only works because we want it to work, right? So when we look at the Fiji label and we read like artisanal water, never touched by man, filtered through lava rock, and then comes out through the spout and it's the most delicious natural silica and all these kinds of things that give it the clean, smooth taste. Before we drink the water, we think we're in Fiji. We're thinking and anticipating that smooth taste.
This is what vacation tastes like.
They kind of do that, don't you think? When you look at the
Absolutely.
label, it's got a little kind of
Yes.
floral thing. It's beautiful. And you're like,
You just it's like you immerse yourself in that little scene.
yeah. You really do. And it's kind of brilliant.
Yeah.
Or when you drink Avion water, I'm like, oh, I'm in the French Alps somewhere. I don't know where I'm at. And we're transported. So I think water is the biggest con that we're happy to be a part of. And somewhere, I don't know when it happened. Actually, I do, because we did some research on this. And I forget some of the details. But at some point, someone came to this realization that we should market water. It was because I think in America, there were some instances where the water that was coming out of the tap was bad. And it was just from that opportunity.
They needed people to live.
Sprung. And so they're like, great, wait a minute. So your water's not safe. So it's a great narrative because now we can sell you things at a price that's more expensive than gasoline, which if you think about it, requires a lot more resources to get. and it's a lot less available, but yet water sells more per gallon than gasoline does. So we're kind of, we want to be
That's
lied
wild.
to. We want to be lied to. And so when they tell us a story we want to believe, we believe it. The same is true about almost every single thing. Bottles of wine, types of beer, anything you eat, anything you touch, you're like, that's a premium product.
It's branding. It's for sure branding. Yeah, the off-brand green beans sitting next to the other one are probably very likely the same green beans. It's just a different package.
Yes. Now, when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. I'm a first-generation immigrant. And we would shop in these kind of a little rougher neighborhoods, right? Because that's where we lived, the supermarket. And you'd go in there, and I would walk around the aisle with my mom. And then I would go to, they had literally an aisle with the generic yellow label. I don't know if you remember this. And I don't think they have it anymore.
Yes, I do.
Okay, you do remember this. Generic brand.
Yes,
it's like
yes,
generic,
I do.
like bread.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
whatever it was. And you have all these products. And it was like Helvetica with yellow background, right? And then, oh my gosh, why is this so much cheaper than Wonder Bread, which at that time I was like, this is it, Wonder Bread.
Mom, can I please just get Wonder Bread?
No kidding,
Never.
right?
Not today.
No. We ain't rich. What do you think? Put that stuff back. Right?
Yeah.
And it's a little ridiculous to think about it now. It's like, Mom, come on.
It is.
You know, it's like $1.50
Yeah,
more.
right.
We can afford this, right? You grab that loaf of bread and you go home and you eat it and it tastes different. And I think it really does taste different because they cut corners, and they're just not made to the exact same standards. Now, thankfully, good news, in most stores now, the store brand is literally the same brand. It's just OEM with a different label. So it's now not like the cheaper bread. It's just the same bread, but you're not paying for the label. But back then, we would sit there and associate, the generic brand is just never as good. The Frosted Flakes, not as good. The bread, a little bit, is a little stiff. It's not as fluffy as the Wonder Bread, right? It's just like that. Now, that leads us to this next part, which is like, how did we get here? Why are we in this place of personal branding? Why does it matter? For that, I have to point out two observations. So if you don't like my thesis, you're not going to go along with this ride, and it's totally okay.
And we'll just end the conversation.
Yeah,
okay?
just end. Just
if
hang
I
up
don't
on
agree,
me.
we'll just say goodbye.
Yeah. Okay, number one, we live in a over-communicated society where the world has really shrank, and things that are happening far away from you, you can connect to, and our ability to talk to each other is really powerful. And so what products and advertisers have figured out, or companies and advertisers have figured out, is you saying something nice about our product is way more effective than us saying something nice about our product. Again, it's what they say, right, versus what we say. And the power has really shifted from corporations and advertisers to individuals, because we can talk to each other. So if you have a bad experience at a restaurant, at a car dealership, at a clothing store, retail experience, then you're going to go around telling everybody what you think. And the platforms
There's
allow
my Google
you to do
review
this,
immediately.
right? Yelp review,
Yep.
a Rotten Tomatoes review, and just countless reviews.
It's like word of mouth, like amplified times 1,000.
Right. So the citizen journalist or critic has become more powerful than the anointed critics, and they've kind of pretty much have all been wiped out at this point, because there's believability and trustworthiness when we all say, like, this is a good film, this is a good meal.
Honestly, I was just about to say, for movies, if I hear a number of critics say they don't like something, I'm like, oh, I'll probably like it then.
Yeah, so
I don't believe what they have to say.
Right, because they have a very specific agenda and a point of view. But if you go and read a Rotten Tomato where it's like 97% and there's like 25,000 people saying that, you're like, okay, I think I trust that. And I've not been disappointed very often when the Metacritic Rotten Tomatoes thing has said it's a good movie. So we're in this place now. We understand that the people who can bring others together, a community, an audience, we will call them influencers, they actually are very powerful today. And the beautiful part is all the gatekeepers have been virtually eliminated. Meaning tomorrow, if you wanted to talk about something and you became really passionate about it, then everybody would start to listen to you. You would hold a tremendous amount of power, and you don't need any credentials. You need to go to school. You don't have to be knighted by anybody. You're ready to go. And so now we live in what many people would refer to as the attention economy, which is a subset of the information economy. So whoever can capture, control, or leverage attention will be super wealthy. And this is really important. So some people would say, we're not in the attention economy. Attention is the economy. So let's look at some examples of
interesting.
this, right? You see where we're going with this?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm here for it.
Right. So just recently, this YouTuber, you may have heard of him. His name is Logan Paul. He teamed up with another YouTuber. His name is KSI.
I don't know.
And
I don't live in the world.
Right? They started an energy drink called Prime. And Prime is one of the fastest growing energy drinks in its category, and is now on track to making Logan Paul a billionaire. So here he was doing his thing, nearly being canceled several times, resurrected himself, got involved in this energy drink thing, and now is going to become a billionaire. And I don't know if he's even 30 yet. And this is remarkable. And if you look at Reese Witherspoon, who sold her production company for almost $1 billion, 900 something million dollars. I didn't even know Reese Witherspoon was doing this. And this is brilliant. And I like to expand on that a little bit. So Reese Witherspoon is a famous actress, right? And she's kind of got that homegrown girl next door. She's attractive, but not super
Southern
attractive.
gal.
You know, yeah. She can play a bunch of
Yeah.
different things. Well, here's the cool thing. She leveraged her following and created a book club. Do you know about this? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're
I'm
part
a
of
part
it?
of this.
Oh, you are? Oh my God. You're part of the ecosystem. So you know. So she has over 2 million people.
Yes, I love Reese Witherspoon.
Right? She has over 2 million people who are part of this book club. So that's a lot of power. That's a lot of leverage. And so what's interesting is if you can command the attention of 2 million people and you say, read this book, it's a really good book. Well, who would be like, you'd be crazy to walk away from an opportunity like that. For example, so if I'm writing a book, the thing I want is for people to buy and then read my book. And so to be able to get into Reese Witherspoon's collection, you have to agree to give her the license or the right to produce film, TV show, and games or whatever media that she wants.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
And
Wow.
then she can then sell 100,000 books for you, 200,000, maybe 1 million, and that would make your life and your career. And so she has the option to then go and produce a film. Now, here's the cool part. Maybe it's not really a book club. Maybe it's providing her with analytics, because if she recommends a book and people buy it and they're raving about it and they're talking about it, that's a pretty good research group where she can use that data and then to go and produce TV shows and films out of this. So when she sold her production company, and I understand the whole story then, it all makes perfect sense. You're not really buying a production company for $1 billion. You're buying this entire ecosystem of validated, vetted books with metrics and analytics. The same way that Netflix uses their data to produce more TV shows that people are going to like. It's a data game. And that's brilliant to me. So here she is, $1 billion. I had heard recently George Clooney is worth $1 billion, also because of his Nescafe and something else that he's working on. And which Ryan is that owns Mint Mobile? Ryan Reynolds he's an okay actor, pretty good looking guy. You know, not a giant box office draw, but Ryan invests in Mint Mobile, and now he's going to be worth $1 gazillion too. And what they're all doing, the narrative thread I'm trying to weave here is they've mastered how to leverage their popularity and the attention, and they built other businesses. Gwyneth Paltrow has done this. Jessica Alba has done this, and they don't need to work anymore. So now we can see how valuable attention is. It's not the attention economy. Attention is the economy.
So I'm going to interrupt you real quick.
Go ahead.
This may be something you're about to answer, and you can just send me on my way if that's the case. What if, those people kind of already have a platform?
Yes.
They already have like their personal brand, sort of like, because they're actors in these cases, right? I would love maybe at some point here in this conversation to talk about like, well, what if someone's just starting and they don't have a personal brand? They don't have a platform. So I'll let you continue on point number 2, and then we can go there. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Okay, sure. So now we're going to connect two things here. Understanding branding, and strong brands have preference over cheaper alternatives. Now we understand that we're living in this place where if you can capture attention and utilize it, you're going to be very wealthy. So now branding, attention, let's start to put those two things together. Now to your point, Brandi, they're already famous. They're already rich. The rich just keep getting richer, like it's killing us, right? All you ugly poor people, it's just too bad, right? Right? Okay. I don't want to kick a dog when they're down. So let's look at this. I first started with Logan Paul, who, for all intents and purposes, it's just like everybody else. He's from Ohio, started making YouTube videos, and Marquez Brownlee started making YouTube videos when he was very young, and they built their own fame on their own terms without any help from Hollywood. And you could argue whether or not they're good looking or not, or whether they have any real charisma, but they created this on their own. And there are more and more stories like this. Mr. Beast, not the best looking guy in the world, probably will be the richest YouTuber that's ever existed. PewDiePie, a video game streamer, Ninja. So you have oddball character types who, through their skill, their passion, their charisma, or just because they're interested in playing, they're able to create an audience and do this. And now we're also seeing beauty influencers come out of nowhere, and they didn't have to go through the Ford modeling agency. They didn't have to walk the runway. They don't have the perfect story or background, but they have a story and a background that a lot of people connect with and resonate with. So if you're Joe Schmo, if you're, plain Jane, whatever it is, what are you going to be able to do? And we know this right now. You want to differentiate yourself from your competition. And the way that you do that is by being different. To differentiate means to be different, not just to be different, but to be radically different. You do this for brands and you do this for personal brands. So when we think of a designer, I'm going to ask you this question, present company excluded.
Absolutely.
When I say designer, give me a name.
Oh gosh.
Any name.
Paul Rand.
Perfect. Give me a name that's still alive. Good answer, by
James
the way.
Victori.
Perfect. Great answer as well. Okay. I'm going to ask you for a third name, and that'll be plenty. Somebody who's alive.
Chip Kidd.
Chip Kidd. Okay. I love your taste in designers. This is excellent. You're probably doing that as a subtle flex. Brandy's like, I got you. Paul Rand.
I love these people, legitimately.
Yes. Paul Rand, one of the greatest American pioneers in graphic design, written several books, taught at is it Harvard? Yale. He taught at Yale. You picked James Victori, whose work is already included in museums, and I like to consider him a professional friend today, James Victori. And the last one was
I've
Chip
actually
Kidd.
worked with him before.
Yeah, awesome.
Yes, Chip Kidd I have yet to meet.
One of the best known book designers, most celebrated book designers, super smart guy, very prolific, brilliant body of work. So you're not just picking some of the new kids, which I love. And you pick these people because they've done something that's great. But also, I imagine if they didn't make any effort to be known, you probably can't pick them because you can't prefer something that you don't know. Paul Rand, like I said, I think he's written 4 books, and he's a teacher, and he's a celebrated designer in an age pre-social media. All right, Chip Kidd.
Yes.
He's got books out and he's designed book covers. So there's a good chance you probably purchased the book that Chip Kidd has designed the book cover for. And he does public speaking.
I'm a big book geek, so that's part of that.
And James Victori, he has his own social media channel. He's producing lots of content, and he's also a prolific creator whose work you've probably have seen somewhere on a magazine, in a museum, or in a design annual somewhere. So they make it easier for you, the common person, to find them, and then hopefully to connect with them and to prefer them. But let me ask you this question. Of the 3 designers, I know you worked with one of them. Do you know a lot about their personality, who they are, besides their body of work?
I would say a little bit Chip Kidd. I don't know much about Paul Rand's personality.
Yep.
And
yeah. So you have personal experience with James Victori. I've watched videos. I've talked to people who were Paul Rand students, and they would mimic his voice. He's a cantankerous old man that's highly opinionated and thrifty on compliments. And that kind of fits how you would think of Paul Rand. Any grace, if you
got to work for it.
If you don't show up, you're going to get torn apart. Part of that old school. But here's the interesting thing. In the time that we live in today, your personality, hence the word like person, no brand.
Personality branding.
And the person matters a lot. It matters a lot because just like that example illustration of bottled water, the bottled water, the package, the design of the shape of the bottle itself, like Voss, very interesting bottle shape, right? Glass with a silver top.
Things do taste better in glass.
They just feel like higher quality, don't they? It's more substantive.
Absolutely.
It's heavy. Okay.
Yes.
It's whatever. You're anti-plastic. This all works.
All this talk of water is just making me thirsty. Keep going.
So what's happening is each one of these products is packaged in such a way that differentiates them from the competitor and comes with a story. Sometimes you make up the story, and sometimes the story is assisted, or you're assisted in understanding the story because it's written on the label, or they've done marketing so you understand who they are. The name, the tagline often, or the illustration in the case of Liquid Death, tells you something. Oh, this is punk rock, man. They're pretty funny. And I like to think of myself as like
I do love their
anti-establishment.
story too.
They're very, very good at telling their story. So
Yes.
then you look at you with your body of work. If you don't tell the story, you're just like water, not in a good way, like a commodity, easily exchanged with other people. And I talked to Michael Margolis recently, and he wrote the book Brand 10X. He says basically every product comes with a story. Some stories are good, some stories are forgettable, and some stories absolutely resonate. And so a product without a story is a commodity. I have no affinity, I have no connection. It's generic bread again, it's generic cornflakes, and that's it. We don't want that. So when we start to talk about developing your personal brand, it's being intentional about telling your story. And it's not about fabricating something, it's about rediscovering who you are. I'll take a breath there. I can go much deeper, but I just want to give you an opportunity to respond.
Yeah. So I wrote down just a few things. So I've been thinking a lot lately about this, and there's a couple of things. As far as personal branding, and I'll just go from my own experience, from my own stuff. There's always the struggle with like, we grow as humans, right? And our story is constantly evolving and changing, and we're learning new things. We are still us, but how does the growing and changing of the person contribute to consistency or not of a personal brand? And then also thinking about what are your thoughts on personal branding basically being you, especially in social media and, creating content and stuff, you, but like I like to say with the vibrance and saturation turned up. So it's like, it's you, but it's a little bit extra you, to make sure that you really show that to people, right? Like I have this shirt on that says yellow's my power color. It is a part of my branding, but also I don't just wear yellow every day of my life. It's part of my outward facing, I'm a creative director brand. So thoughts on those two things?
Yes, absolutely. Number one is, I think from birth to about 22, 23, your brain gets formed. You kind of start to figure out who you are. You've graduated from college. You live in the real world. And everything that you've been taught, it's kind of in you. And those parts don't really change. And you really can't change your backstory, where you're from, who your parents are, if you had it tough or not, because then that comes across as being disingenuous, and people get exposed for those kinds of things all the time. Now, you as a human being, hopefully, if you play the game right, until the day you die, you're learning, you're evolving, but your moral compass, some of your initial, how you orient in the world will never change. Like if you know right from wrong, tomorrow it doesn't become wrong and then right. It's just going to be the way it is. But you might like different music. You might wear your hair differently. So how you express yourself and your preferences for music, for art, and for culture, and for writing should evolve. You're not supposed to like the same band that you liked when you were 13 years old. You can take all those NSYNC posters down. You could, but most people don't. They just evolve.
It's just nostalgia.
A little bit, right? So that's okay. I'm not here to judge anybody. We grow out of preferences. Like, for example, my son, he would only eat white food. Anything that was bland, beige, that's the only thing he would eat. Oatmeal, rice, cheese, that's all he would eat. And it was very difficult, or chicken. And then more recently, he went away to school, a boarding school, and now he's in college. He's trying new flavors because he realized that he artificially limited the kinds of experiences he can have. And this, as a parent, delights me. He's like, I've never had that before, Dad. Should I try? I'm like, you're welcome to try it. I'm never going to force you. And he's invited. And he's like, okay, I kind of liked it. That was different. And he would try more things. And this is evolution. This is a good thing. But who he is as a highly attentive, empathetic person who has a very clear moral center should never change. If we've done our job right, when somebody offers him a political bribe or to break a law, he's not going to do that. That's the job of parenting.
Unless it's beige. Just kidding.
Yeah. He's been raised correctly, right? He's always going to be polite and kind to people, but he's also going to be critical in the things that he cares about. Those parts should never change. So when we talk about, should you be able to evolve? Yes, absolutely. And if people want to get up on you and like, you're not the same person, you've changed. My reaction to that, well, we're not really friends now, are we? And you really don't care. And that's okay. And you're allowed to have your opinion, and I'm going to do my thing, and you should do your thing. Now, when you talk about this idea, the second point, which is, are you being an extrovert where it's you want a little more, all the dials turned up? I think in some ways it is true. And I think of it like this. When you're a stage actor, you are going to overact because it's very hard to see you. We're pretty far away.
Got to reach those people in the back.
Yeah. The cheap seats in the back. So the small expressions or quiet dialogue, nobody can hear, nobody can see. And so what actors have to do when they are groomed like for Broadway or theater, they have to change for television and cinema, because now we have the lens, and the director can push way in and up into the point in which they can see your eyelashes and your pores. They have to like not Broadway it up, and we hear those expressions, right? And if you can think about it then, is social media like cinema or is it more like theater? And I think for the most part, it's a little bit more theater than it is cinema, because no one's up on your mug that closely. So you're going to have to dial it up.
And you control that.
Right? So you might like yellow, but for social, you might have to literally tell people yellow's my power color, everybody. And you might arrange more objects in the background to carry that color theme through, just so people are like, hey, are you seeing this? Are you paying attention? Because people are not zoomed in on you, nor should they be. And so that's why we have to be a little bit more. Like right now, I'm going to be super transparent with you. I don't always talk like this, but I realized something. If I go on a podcast or a YouTube channel and I'm like, yeah, so I feel about branding and design and yellow. After a while, you're like, yeah, I'm tuning out, right?
Yes.
You have to transmit some of the energy, the frequency, the wavelength, so that it hits the sensor on my camera, uploads it to the internet, and then comes back down, and then you're watching it, a compressed, edited version, so that some of this enthusiasm comes through. Now, if I did this all my life, I'd be exhausted, and you would be tired of me too.
Your significant other would probably be like, tone it down.
Yeah, like a couple of notches, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Settle down. Why are you so excited?
Yeah, so that's the answer to those two things. Now, let's talk about the cult of personality, because that's one of the things that you brought up. And can you fall into this trap of being narcissistic and egocentric? And most definitely you can, as we've seen many people do. And this gets into intentionality. So was it their intention to help people or just to be famous and to be the center of attention? And it's hard to say what anybody's intentions are. All we can do is look at what they say and what they do. And is it consistent with someone who's here to serve, who wants to entertain us or teach us something? Or is it here so that you can just follow every little stupid thing that I do? Now, I'm not a fan of the vlog format. I think it's a viable thing. But it's telling people like my life is so important, isn't it? That you want to know every little detail about me. They will eventually, but not at the beginning. So I'm more a proponent for let's create positive transformation in the world. Let's help people achieve a goal, big or small. And that goal could just be, get my mind off the miserable life I have, help me feel less anxious, or help me figure out how to talk to a client about money, whatever it might be. Or, you know what? I just need a distraction for what I'm going through. And can you just show me a cool cooking video with ASMR? Yeah, I could do that, and that's what you do. And then eventually, when people love the content so much, they want to know more about you. See, the reason why the tabloids exist and they only feature celebrities is because people don't know about you. And they're not going to care if you went to a wedding or if you stayed out late or might have stepped out on your partner. They don't care because they don't know who you are. So the first part of this game is to create value for other people. And I think social media is a scorecard. The more value you create for people, the larger your following will be, period. Okay. Now, eventually, you're going to get to this point where people are like, hey, bring us into your world a little bit. Turn the camera around so we can see what the setup looks like, because now we're super fascinated about you and every little thing that you do. And you can choose to show them nothing, which many people do. You can choose to show them a little or a lot, entirely up to you. It depends on the level of relationship and transparency you want to have with your audience.
And your own brand voice, what it is that you are trying to be. I'm sure you obviously, everybody knows Gary Vee, and his whole thing is, right, like document. Don't just make things, like document stuff so you have content to share. And where's the balance then between like, not just featuring yourself and all of the stuff, just like here's me doing this and here's me doing this, but also documenting so that you have some content to maybe talk over saying something valuable? Or, how do you think that it is what's a good way to like for people to manage that challenge of not making it all about you, but also, what if I do want to kind of document how I set up my desk for the day, but I don't really know how that gives them value?
Okay. Well, everybody's going to answer this question a little bit differently. This is a highly individual,
but I'm
personalized
asking
thing.
you.
I'll give you my opinion. So
I
let's
want
talk
your
about Gary
opinion.
Vee. Let's talk about Gary Vee. Now, one thing we all need to know is all strategy is autobiographical. People will tell you to do something because it's worked for them. The question that you have to ask yourself, am I them? Do I have their resources? Do I have the same ambition? Do I have the same backstory? And if you do, then follow their game plan. This is why we all can't get rich or famous following someone else's plan, because we are not them, all right? So Gary does lots of things, but one of Gary's superpowers is to be able to say thought-provoking things in very few words that are easy to remember. So he said, document, don't create. And it becomes a rallying cry for a lot of people, and it gives them permission to create something, right? Document, don't create, because the act of creation is very scary for lots of people. So let's just take it on its surface level and what his intention behind that message is. He thinks the world is better, and I agree with him, if more creators emerged from the shadows and started to share their voice and their opinion, because we want a plurality of voices and influences and cultural references, not the same old ones. We can agree that that's a good idea. Plurality, diversity are generally good things to have. And if it helps someone overcome the fear of producing something, overcome perfectionism, whatever disorder they suffer from, that they can create something, this is excellent. But underneath that is a lack of a strategy. So we have to understand, like, just because it sounds good and we understand the concept, where this is usually where Gary fails, is not a lot of tactics involved here. So we have to be careful that these things don't become empty platitudes. Like, we agree, love is good, be kind, be empathetic, empathy wins. Those kinds of things make us feel good about humanity, about ourselves. But how does one apply that, and how is he applying it? Those are the bigger questions. Now, having said that, let's talk about this, okay? If you're a creative person, you're like, I don't want to create content. I definitely don't want to do vlogs. So let's apply his expression, document, don't create. I tell people this. I'm going to tell you to do something today that's hyper tactical. And if you do this in a year or two from now, when things start working out for you, you're going to thank me and you'll send me $2,000 for telling you to do this today. Okay? I'm just going to make it super tactical for you right now. What you're going to do is you're going to go on the internet and you're going to buy yourself a hard drive. The bigger, the better. Maybe 5 terabytes. It costs $100. It doesn't have to be a fast drive. And on this drive, what you're going to do every single day that you're working on a project, designing a logo or website, is you're going to use one of these screen capturing programs. You can use QuickTime. QuickTime doesn't give you a lot of options, and the files tend to be quite big. You can use something like ScreenFlow. Okay, ScreenFlow or Camtasia will capture what you're doing on your desktop, and you can specify certain windows so it doesn't accidentally pick up other things. And then just forget about it. At the beginning of the day, when you're working, record. When you go for lunch, stop. Just keep recording and just save it to that drive, and never think about it again. And one day you're going to wake up and the drive is going to be full. Buy another drive, just another $100. They're so cheap to buy today, and just keep filling it up. And what I would do is put a little label on it and say January 2023 to May, and just label them all and just keep doing that, right? Now, what will happen is 2 or 3 years from now, you're like, I'm ready to start to make content. Oh, and that project turned out really well, and there was a really valuable lesson because the client said this, and this is how he solved it. And you're like, oh, shoot. I'm about to go recreate that whole process? Oh, no, I don't, because I was listening to this podcast, and you have it, and you're going to say, Eureka. Now, what you can do is give this to an editor and say, hey, here are the final project files, and I'm going to do an intro, and I want you to grab that footage, do a time-lapse thing, speed it up, and cut something together, and then I can do voiceover and narrate over what I'm doing. And so in this way, you have content for days, for weeks, and you can do this. And this is going to be one of the most brilliant things.
That's a different kind of documenting.
Yes, like literally I'm going to tell you how to do it, not just like, hey, what does that mean? Because a lot of people hear document, don't create, and they will document nothing.
Or everything.
Pretty much.
Non-strategically. It's, just going to record all sorts of things and not have any idea what to do with it.
Yeah, it's a strange act to turn the camera on yourself. It does feel some level of self-conscious. You're going to be like super self-conscious of this, and maybe even narcissistic, like, oh my God, isn't that anything special? I can't tell you how many times I wish that we had digital cameras and inexpensive media back in the day, because there are things that I did in my youth in the late 90s as part of building my company that I wish I was able to document and have better pictures. I don't even have photos of myself. So, there's like 3 photos, and they're like captured on film and not on a digital camera. And so I can't reliably go back and say, well, this is kind of how it was. Some of the most popular posts that I have are from the early days, and how how ghetto my setup was. And people are like, oh my God, look, he has a phone book. What is that?
Oh my gosh. But it's also, I love that because it's not about the tools.
Of course.
It's not what you have at your,
Yeah, but it's like an antique store in that photo, right?
It's funny you say that. I just bought, I don't know which slide it's on. I bought an old phone back here that I'm going to try and connect to so that I can actually get that, pick up the phone feeling again. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. How do you see personal branding evolving in the coming years with social media, all of the trends? What are some things that you see emerging that creative professionals specifically should be aware of?
Well, I'll address the elephant in the room. In the age of AI and how sophisticated tools are becoming, it's forcing all of us to have a much greater philosophical and existential question, which is, if I don't have to do the things I don't want to do, what am I going to do? And I would suggest that whether you're pro or anti-AI, we cannot ignore that progress is being made. And the thing I like to tell people is the future is undefeated. Do not fight the future because progress happens whether you like it or not, whether it's kind to you or not.
Whether you fight it or not.
Yeah. I heard Daniel Priestley say this. He said that AI undoubtedly will be a multi-billion, maybe $1 trillion economic force. The problem is the wealth that it creates will not be distributed evenly. And so that's a wake-up call. That's a warning call for all of you. It's if you want to sit there and complain, then you've become a whiner. So if you complain twice, go build a solution for it. Write your congressperson or do a class action lawsuit. Do something. Don't just sit there and complain. Unfortunately, our community seems to be full of people who just want to complain about stuff and not do anything about it. Or you can do what I've done, or I'm doing, which is developing AI tools, incorporating in my own workflow and with my team to say, what if you had to use AI to replace yourself? What would you do? And start to get smart with how we use these tools versus getting caught behind it. There's an expression that says when the tide goes out, you see who's wearing swim trunks, and the tide is coming out. You don't want to be caught without your swim trunks, and it's an important thing. Now, there's one other thing I wanted to tell you about, which is my perspective on personal branding. It is a hot buzzword.
That was going to be my last question. Is there anything else I missed?
Okay, so on the newsstand, in a very traditional magazine, Harvard Business Review, is this issue, May, June 2023, Build Your Personal Brand. And it's like a chair in the spotlight, right? And I bought this issue because I'm talking and teaching about personal branding. I'm like, let me educate myself on what the pros, the educated...
What Harvard thinks.
Yeah, these Harvard educated professors and intellectuals are saying.
Ooh, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, right? I bought it just for this. It's a $20 issue. I bought it for $20 just so I can find out what they're saying. And I got to tell you, I'm disappointed in what it says. And I'm also super excited and thrilled.
Do tell.
Yes. The people who wrote the article on page 147, Build Your Personal Brand, are talking about building your personal brand in terms of your resume to get a job. Super disappointing. So they're talking about how you describe yourself, how you show up. And there are concepts in there that are similar, but their intention behind this is just not what I'm talking about. So let's take that off the table, okay?
We're not talking about how to get your LinkedIn resume.
And it feels like that's what it's about. How to get a promotion or something in your, If anything, if you know anything about me, I'm not really here for people to get a job. This is not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to empower people to become an entrepreneur, to be a creator, and to live life on their own terms, not go work for the man. Like Jose and I would always say this, it's don't work for the man, be the man, be the boss.
Yeah.
That's what you want. Now, number 2, personal branding, which I'm not for it either, as there are a lot of people out there who don't have a personal brand, aren't influential, don't create preference, who are talking about teaching other people how to build a personal brand. This is nonsense to me. It's like when somebody's living in an apartment telling you how to build a multi-apartment empire. It's like, I don't know. And here's what they're usually saying, because they know it's a hot topic, is build your personal brand so that you can market more of your services. So it's a really thinly disguised thing about marketing, okay? And we're talking about mostly marketing practices that most of us despise. I'm not for that either. So when I do my workshops and my talks on personal branding, I said, you all may be horribly disappointed as soon as I tell you what we're going to talk about, because I'm not here to teach you how to build a personal brand so you can market more of your goods. Now, There is an economic upside, as I've shared with Reese Witherspoon, Ryan Reynolds, and others, but that's not why we're doing this. For me, personal branding is about connecting with who you are to get in alignment with that. Now, Picasso said something like, the meaning of life is to discover your gift. The meaning of life is to discover your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. This is, to me, what personal branding is about. And when I talk about this, you might say, oh, this is a little bit different. It's kind of heating up on the inside here, okay? So here's why I say this. Psychologist Carl Jung talks about who we are in ways that are different than the Freud approach, which is there's the ego, and the ego regulates who we wind up showing up in public. There's the persona, the person that you do because you're trained to be this person so that you can get along and not be a social pariah or an outcast. It's why you, as an adult, don't go around picking your nose and eating your boogers. We've learned to keep our mouths shut, to shake a hand a certain way, and to wear certain uniforms so we can be accepted within certain social circles. And then there's this other side to us, what Jung talks about as the shadow self. The stuff that you know about you, that carries some shame and some guilt and some pain around, a great level of discomfort. You might like comics. You might like some strange foods, but the persona, and we can't be that way. People are going to judge us. We can't do this. So the ego regulates these two things. The problem is when you show up in life as the persona, the thing that you have to be accepted by other people, and you keep doing this long enough, you forget who you are. You pretend to be somebody long enough, and then you just become that person. So for me, personal branding,
you become the mask.
you become the mask, and there's no separation between you and the mask, and you forget about your own story. So here's the thing. To me, personal branding is not an act of creation; it's an act of remembering. So in this way, I'm a rememberer, and I help you to remember who you are. And to do that, we have to go to the past. We have to figure out your origin story, your backstory, your crossing the threshold moment, and the trials and tribulations that you go through, and to tap in some of the shadow self, to reveal to the world who you are, but mostly to get you to accept who you are. And when you can do that, we go from being a human with a hole to being a whole human, complete in the ugly and the beautiful and the sublime and everything in between. To me, that's personal branding. And I want to encourage and help people find that voice, to share it with the world, and to be proud and say it loud, and to be able to create the kind of impact that they're meant to create to fulfill their purpose. A little bit different approach.
No, I love that. And honestly, like I'm with you on so many levels, because when I'm trying to work with creatives that I work with and helping them figure out like their visual voice, I often ask them like, well, what did you like as a kid? Like, let's make a scrapbook piece of paper thing. Like, let's look at some of the cartoons you loved. Let's look at some of the things that like you liked then that you could say now, like, I still love those things. Like, those things made me who I am. And, maybe it's the things like you said, you don't want to tell people that like, well, I play D&D, but I don't want I don't want my boss to know, because he might look at me differently because I work in this corporate environment, and it's almost like the covering up the tattoo idea. It's like, this is me, but I can't really show that off. So I'm so with you on that, and I think it's so valuable that you help people do that.
Do you know who Henry Cavill is? Henry Cavill?
Yeah.
He's a darn good-looking human being. Some of you might know
yes.
him from The Witcher, from playing the role of Superman. He played the role of Superman, and also like the bad guy in Mission Impossible, opposite Tom Cruise. And if you're a Henry Cavill fan too, he's like, I know women who get weak at the knees just mentioning his name. They're like, oh.
I'm not that person, but I know about this.
Like a matinee idol kind of thing, right? And so you think about this.
Yeah.
Did you know that Henry Cavill is a giant nerd?
I don't follow him, so no.
He paints miniatures and he goes crazy about it. He said that he almost missed Zack Snyder's casting call for Superman because he was in the middle of a Warhammer session. Warhammer is like Dungeons and Dragons, but with Space Marines.
Oh, I play D&D, so I know the like.
And then he's super passionate
offshoots.
about these video games that he's able to then become the real life, the theatrical version of the video game. And to me, it's like, we're living in a different era now, because could you imagine back in the day, like Tom Cruise or Bruce Willis talking about Dungeons and Dragons and comic books and just geeking out with us over that kind of stuff? The market would have turned against them.
Or Gene Kelly saying that he reads comic books.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? People are like, oh, that's not masculine. That's not cool. But we live in a different era now where the weird things about your childhood is makes you wonderful as an adult.
It's a good reminder. And I think that that's like really, when I was teaching at a local private art college as well, the one that I went to and graduated from, I found myself in a really interesting, weird position, because when I was going through school, it was all about you don't have a voice, you don't get to have a voice, you have to take on the voice of whatever person you're working for. Nobody cares about what you think, nobody cares about what your preferences or styles or any of that. That always like sat weird with me when I graduated. And so I slowly moved away from that for me. But when I went back to this college to teach at this place, I really wanted to make a point to my students that like, look, your voice matters. Like who you are as a creative person actually is valuable. And that's what's going to set you apart from the AI programs. They can't bottle you and sell you. You can only make the things that you are going to create the way you can create them. So I resonate with a lot of what you're saying as well.
I think for me, personal branding is a combination of my passion for design, for branding, for marketing, and it's a bit of philosophy and pop psychology. And so I try to differentiate myself. I mean, I'm trying to practice what I preach, right? Not to be different, but to be radically different. So whenever you hear somebody talk about personal branding, ask yourself a couple of questions. Number one, do they have a personal brand that you like and care for and would pay a premium for? And number two, are they really just trying to disguise some kind of marketing scheme so that you can sell more products to more people? And I think there's a place in the world for that. Let's just not call that personal branding.
Yes, I agree. It's like when social media influencers get big just because they're teaching you how to be social media influencers, but it's like this weird circle and nothing's actually going on there. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending all this time with me. Is there anything else, any question you were hoping I would ask that you did not have a chance to answer? Any points that you hoped to share with the audience?
I don't think so, but I'm going to ask you this question back. At the beginning, we started, you asked a multifaceted, rather layered question. And I said I would answer all of them. It's just going to take time to unpack. I think I've answered, but I'm not sure. So if there's anything left over in that, because your audience will remember, like, well, Chris never said this. Brandi, I'm going to throw this back in your court. So audience, if I didn't do my job, it's Brandi's fault, it's not mine.
It will be my fault if I forgot, because I feel like you not only answered the layers, but you also delved deeply into some really important parts of those things. So I don't feel like you were at a lack for anything I was hoping for you to answer. So if the audience feels like we missed something, I guess they'll have to call me out later, guys, gals.
You can call Brandi out.
I'm okay with it. I can take criticism.
Because yellow's her power color. Well, you have to remember that.
It is. You know, I've never had a favorite color, but because rainbow is my favorite color, but yellow is my power color. So.
And if there are lots and lots of questions that are unresolved that we didn't get to, or something else that we didn't think to talk about, I would be open to coming back for part 2.
That would be fantastic. Honestly, Chris, like this has been so much fun. I feel like we are kindred spirits on a lot of these issues, and I think that it could be a lot of fun to do this again.
I enjoyed it. It was a blast. You bring such positive energy, and I love the questions and your knowledge. And you know, you rank very high in my book, given the 3 references that you dropped early on. With Paul Rand,
thank you,
James Victoria, and
certified design geek over here.
Yeah, you can't do better than that. Come on, people.
Well, hopefully that'll make people out there like go look those 3 up if they don't know who they are.
Oh, if you don't know,
I honestly
done. No, we'll cancel you right now.
Yeah, we can't be friends.
Yes.
We will not get along if you don't
cool
know
enough.
those 3. So. Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. And yeah, let's plan on doing this again really soon. We'll do a part 2 on personal branding or whatever else we're feeling passionate about. I would absolutely enjoy that.
Okay, super. Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining me for this amazing interview with Chris Do today. If you found this video helpful or inspiring, I hope that you will share it with a friend, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to this channel for more incredible content to come your way. And I'll see you guys next time.